These, we jointly, you and us, jointly together, we have to make sure these get filled out correctly. So come March, when everybody's trying to make sure during the tournament and there's any confusion on how many majors or if it's not a major, we have to make sure that they're filled out right before we leave the rink. So at the end of the game, I know you got, a lot of you depend on your managers and your statisticians to take care of a lot of stuff, but if something happened during the game and we have to write it up, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the game sheet before we sign it and we're gonna take it into our ref room and we're gonna fill it out. The two officials that are there are gonna fill it out and then we'll give it back to us. This way you'll know when you leave, everything is okay. And if you guys can help us to make sure that we get the sheet and it's not just, it's not a rush. It's our job, we're there to make sure that before the game and after the game. So if anything happens during the game, we want to make sure it gets filled out. If you need an explanation of it, we'll be able to do that for you. If it was or wasn't going to go against your so many majors, you can get a seat. Along with that, I understand it's hard for you guys to get people to run the clock for you and to do certain things. I know you sometimes have managers. If you could possibly try to get an adult in there to help the kids, I know the kids want to help out, it's great, but sometimes if they don't actually know what's going on in there and we got to put up multiple penalties or we're trying to write stuff on the sheet, half the problem is the penalties we report to them, they may not write down very legibly, but then we're trying to figure out what they wrote again. So if we can get a little clarification on the game sheet process, it would be a lot easier for everybody. What we're going to try to do when we're filling out, we're going to make sure that we put down the rule, the page number, everything that has to be in there. So if you have a question with it, you can look in your book also. Okay. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay. Second thing, sportsmanship. This is one of my biggest pet peeves when we talk to the captains before the games. And we try to tell them, basically it's on the first or second page of the rule book. Have a little respect for the people you're playing with, the fellow coaches, and the officials. I'm not going to say generally, but a lot of games, there's a lot of language that comes out of everybody's mouths that not very sportsmanlike. You're supposed to have really respect for one another. And there's times during the year when you get to give a penalty for a kid swearing, and they look at you and say, why? Well, you're not supposed to swear. I mean, you could swear, if you want to swear to yourself, we understand what you're doing, but if you're swearing at someone else, or on the bench and you're skating by, there's 9,000 F-bombs coming off the bench, you can't have it. You know, as Doc Nagel was talking about it before, you have to have a little pride in your sport. Carry yourself out with that. It makes it a lot better game for everybody. You know, if you have a question for us, ask us a question. We have a question for you, we'll ask it. We try to have a little conversation back and forth with everybody. But if there's no respect for anybody and there's swearing going on and you're taunting other kids back and forth, that doesn't do us any good. So try to do along with that. I know it's hard for the coaches to try to handle that because they're trying to watch everything else, but you know, there's coaches out there that, you know, skating by them and they're swearing also. So you got to try to, I understand you get a little excited, but you got to remember one thing, it's still a high school hockey. So we're not making livings out of this. The third thing is we have to try to do a little better job of handling confrontations that we have during a game. At the end of the game, if there's something that you saw you didn't like, try to discuss it with the officials that you're with and try to get an explanation out of that before the night's done. If you don't get like the answer you got, or there's something happened that didn't make sense, don't go to outside sources and try to get it promoted through that way. We're not big fans of the newspaper. We don't want to see ourselves in the newspaper. So if there's something that's maybe controversial, maybe doesn't make sense, try to get it to ask us first. If not, if you don't like the answer you got from the officials, the board members, our phones are on when the hockey season starts. Our phones are on all day and night, because we tell our officials and we tell you coaches, if you have a problem in your game, there's 4 directors. Every area has a director. There's a director at large. The president, the vice president, the guys, the commissioners that schedule the game, their phones are on. If you have a problem, if you don't want to call somebody at 11 o'clock at night, call them first thing in the morning, and we'll try to find the best answer we can for you. Because sometimes it works. There's a couple times where one of our guys did something wrong. The next day there was phone calls and it was rectified. So we don't want to have any confrontation that gets blown out of proportion. We want to keep it simple, under the radar, in and out, have a good time. 2 hours, boom, boom, how do you do? And are all the director stuff on the web? When you guys click on to the Arbiter, which Randy's going to explain to that later, when you click on to the Arbiter to see your schedules, all that information is on there. Phone numbers, there's emails on there. Call them. We would rather have you call the directors than the commissioners. The commissioners have enough problem scheduling games. They don't want to have to hear about complaints. We have one of our commissioners here who's been doing it for 90,000 years, Joe Riley. He doesn't need a phone call in the morning to worry about that. That's what Mike Burrell's. Mike Burrell's a commissioner, a director. Call him. Call Randy, call myself. Do it that way. It's easier that way. We'll try to give you the best answer we can as fast as we can. That's it from that point. I think just try to help us, try to get everything done before we leave the rink. If there's any questions, we'd like to get it all done so everybody can leave on a good note. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you.